Hello and welcome. In this short tutorial, I'll show you the features of the Database Utilities window. So let's get started. From the Document This Viewer window, click File, then click Database Utilities. By default, Connect to Different Database option is automatically selected, and the current SQL Server instance is displayed. If you have multiple SQL Server instances, clicking the down arrow in the combo box will display them. As you can see here. Select the desired SQL Server instance, then click the down arrow in the database name combo box and select the desired database. Then click the checkbox Set as Current Database, and then click the Execute button. Pay attention to the text window. That will tell you if there were any errors and the status of the function you performed. As you can see here, it shows that I connected to this database using this SQL Server instance. And it also informs me that it was set as the default database and that the application will be required to restart. So by clicking Done or closing the window, that will initiate the restart. As you can see, we are now connected to the new database. To create a new database, let's go back in the Database Utilities and click on the radio button, Create New Database. So that's File, Database Utilities. Now we're going to click on this radio button here, Create New Database. Again, select the desired SQL Server instance, and then type a name for the database. Make sure that you don't have any spaces in there. Capitals and lowercase are fine. If you'd like to make this the current database, again, select Set as Current Database. Click Execute. Pay attention to the text window. As you can see, it gives you all the steps that were taken in creating this database, the tables, permissions, and the connection. And again, it prompts you that the application needs to be restarted because you checked Set as Current Database. So let's go ahead and click Done. And now you see that it connected to the new database. You have to put the default username and password in. And we're now connected to the new database. Let's go ahead and delete a database now. To delete a database, let's go back in the Database Utilities and click on the radio button, Delete a Database. Now, one thing to note here is that you have to make sure you're not connected to the database when you try and delete it. For instance, I'm currently connected to my new database. If I would try and delete my new database, I'm going to get an error. So let's go ahead and delete a different one. I've got a default one out, a dummy one out here called Test. And we don't need to worry about setting this current database because we're deleting it. So all you need to do is click Execute. It's going to prompt you, warning you that this cannot be recovered. Are you sure you want to do this? You can either click yes or no here. If I click yes, it deletes that database, and we're done. If I browse now, you'll see that DT_test doesn't exist in my SQL Server instance list of databases. And now I can just click Done. It does not affect the database I'm connected to, but that database is gone. Once it's gone unless you have a backup of it. Speaking of backups, let's go ahead and do a backup of the databases. Let's go back into Database Utilities, select Backup All Databases, and we're going to go ahead and select this SQL Server instance here. There's no need to select the database name because it's going to back up all databases that are in this SQL Server instance. And then we're going to click Execute. This takes a little time depending on how many databases you have and how large they are. And again, pay attention to the text window. You can see here that all my databases were backed up. And this tells me where they were backed up to. Now this points to a local location on this server. Now this server here isn't the server that I'm actually on. Just keep that in mind. And then you can click Done, and you're done backing up those databases. If you have multiple SQL Server instances that you have document this databases in, you can also back those up. And that's as simple as clicking Backup, selecting the different SQL Server instance, and clicking Execute. And now I backed up all the databases in this SQL Server instance. Now, this SQL Server instance here is locally connected. And then click Done. Okay, now that we have all our databases backed up, let's go ahead and restore one. Now, one thing to note here, to restore a database, it cannot already exist. So this would be a database that you might have deleted, or maybe for some reason the database has been corrupted. You must delete it first and then restore from a previous backup. So, as always, backup, backup, backup. Let's go ahead and click File, Database Utilities. And click Restore. Now remember, I deleted a database called DT_test. And by default, when you create a database, it will automatically assign the prefix DT_. That's so my application can keep track of which databases belong to this program. So now if I click the down arrow under database name, notice that all my databases here have a .back extension. These are backups of the actual database. Now if I look here, notice that DT_test does not exist. So I can go ahead and restore that database. So we'll select the database. Now I can make it the current database if I prefer, which I'll go ahead and do. And I'm going to click Execute. Notice it says DT_test completed successfully. It's been set as the default, and the application must be restarted to connect to that database. So let's go ahead and click Done. My application opens back up. Notice it is automatically populated with the correct database. Put in the default username and password, and now I'm connected to that database. I hope this video tutorial helped you, and thank you for purchasing Document Viewer This.